economics PhD have. An MBA.
I also pulled up the slide deck, just a couple of the extra information about the case.
Oh, sorry.
I think I hear my mom.
I
Oh, they
got
won't be-
a text from work. I
Yeah,
have to
right.
go.
Okay, thank you for.
Nothing more to say, but. Well, apparently you do.
Brad is on his way.
It always scares me when you come in with something covered with notes. I prepare, and it's perfect.
I usually put notes on my.
So it's a pretty fancy ink.
Yeah, it's only four questions at most.
Okay.
Fred will be here in a few moments. He's running a few minutes late, so we will, we'll wait for him.
It's a bad accident. I was coming here and home, fire department, Blossom Fire Department. Chicago Heights, these are all past me,
On which one?
going towards Allstate,
Um,
100 acre.
oh, please.
Yeah, they are, I mean, I'm getting.
Express. See, maybe there was something going on.
Yeah, pretty.
My writing was screwed up going in this morning as well, so. No accidents, no destruction, just over the rain.
Yeah.
It'll take 3 times as long to get.
Oh, yeah.
3 more minutes on these days. There was nothing express about it.
Yep.
These are a little different, these drawings. Look at 16 streets, and this one only has 12.
That one's, this one we have, I just gave you an example of the Chicago Heights location
Okay,
from the architect.
so are you over there on Joe Orr?
Dixie and Bowman,
Dixon Bowman.
yeah.
Dixon, okay. I know, yeah, Dixon.
It's right by, Mr. Staggs,
Yeah, and the old, and we're,
the old, where the economic before.
and the deli that we brought.
Yeah. Oh, it does.
Deli moved home, yeah.
Yeah.
Your place excited. Oh, it's helpful to just keep record of who's in attendance. Thanks so much.
Is a white explorer. Or.
Oh.
Here.
No.
Uses.
Black City. No. Right, member Bryce here, you okay taking over the chair for event duties until Friday?
Sure,
Excellent,
so we can switch when you get to.
sure. Thanks,
You want me to slide over or not?
I'm sorry.
Do you want me to slide over or? Just over here. Get them to the front.
Unless you want to wait. This sunrise would be nice.
Approve the minutes. Yeah, we can approve the minutes and see where it's
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, you gotta.
All right, it is 7:08. We'll call order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of May 9th. First item on our agenda is call to order, so second roll call.
Member Alfonso,
Here,
member Bransky,
Here.
member Cap,
Here.
member O'Brien,
Here.
member Johnson. Member Castaneda,
here.
Chair Suzega. Right, we have a quorum, and Member Bransky will be serving as chair pro tem this evening until, unless, Chair Sudega arrives.
All right, next time on the roll calls, we got approved minutes from our April 25th, 2024 hearing. Anybody have any corrections, modifications?
I have one small one on page 8. At the bottom, on the left-hand side. It says west side of Dixie. It should be east side. There's nothing on the west side that would speak to that particular reference.
Breakfast.
The bottom of page 8 here, Member O'Brien said the use was on the west side of Dixie Highway. Member Johnson had concern about the amount of deliberation required. There, east side.
Anyone else?
Two small things. Page 2 of the packet, page 1 of the minutes, there was just a little copy and paste typo. Right under approval of mini minutes, Chair Suzega requested any proposed changes to the minutes, member O. So I think member O just needs to be deleted. And then the second thing I had. So the person who appeared during the POD hearing, his name is Brian Mott, not Bill Mott. So you can just change it to Brian. And that's all I have.
Anyone else going once, going twice? Can I get a motion to approve the
So
minutes?
moved.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Motion by member O'Brien, second by member Castaneda. And here comes our chairman, so just in time, so we can get a vote.
Member Alfonso,
Abstain.
Member Bransky,
Yes.
Member Cap,
I'm abstaining.
Member O'Brien,
Yes,
Member Johnson. Member Castaneda,
Yes.
Chair Suzega.
Hold that thought, he's on his way in the door.
Alright, we should probably pause.
He was trying to see if he has any corrections himself.
Very well.
Here he comes.
I could have let you in this door.
I'm here.
We started and we are voting on the minutes. Member Johnson calls order and we're voting on the minutes, but we still need one more vote to pass them.
All right.
We'll let you get settled.
Once you get settled,
Yep.
that would be your vote.
If I need to do anything official to hand it back to him, I got tag in or
Yeah.
hand it at the time.
You have the
Good evening. The gavel for the record.
Gavel back.
that's-
Chair Suzega will resume this.
So you've
Chair
done the
of
minutes?
Oh,
Have you done the minutes already?
we have one meeting.
Yep, we're taking the vote right now.
Okay,
do you have any corrections or modifications, Fred?
no, sir, I do not, thank you.
Okay, we can just start the roll call over again.
We'll do the roll call over.
Rude thing to do. All right, member Alfonso,
Abstain.
member Bransky,
Yes.
member Cap,
Abstained.
member O'Brien,
yes,
member Castaneda,
Yes.
Chair Suzega.
Yes,
Right, motion carries.
We're on public comments, Mr. Chairman.
okay, well, we have one case before us tonight. Does anybody have any comments they'd like to make before the meeting starts, the first case? No, okay. We have one case before us, it's a continuation from our meeting of April 25th for a special use permit. Case number 2405 and 2409, special use permit for a salon spa use and a variance for parking. It was published in the April 11th edition of the Star. I'm sorry, of the Dogtown. And you received no comments?
Not received any public comments at this time.
Okay.
It's on the side.
And the applicant is here?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna have you folks come up and we're gonna swear you in. As all testimony is taken under oath, okay? Well, whoever's gonna talk, we'll swear you both in. And anybody in the audience, if you have any questions, we're gonna ask you to stand, state your name and address, and we'll swear you in also, okay? Okay, could we have your name, please,
El Sayed Albano,
and your address?
10824 Royal Glen Drive, Orland Park, Illinois, is my home address.
Okay, and you, sir, what is your name
Hello, thank you for coming today, Sharif Farhood,
and your address, please?
104.
Okay. And if you both want to raise your right hands, swear the testimony you're gonna give. It's gonna be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Okay? So you want to open a salon spa facility at 2207 West 183rd Street, which is the former. What was it, Lance? It was the animal shelter. Okay. All right, we've got some background information that we've been provided, but I'm gonna let you two tell us in your own words what you would like to do there, okay?
Okay.
So who would like to start?
Yeah, so, we're actually trying to just basically give small, just everybody opportunity to own their own small business by opening a salon suite, you know? And, just everybody come on their time and not have to worry about the boss being over there, you know? And, it's a lot of like, basically gets them molded into opening a bigger salon themselves or just something to get them started. And, really, you know, just something to bring to the community, you know, a lot of people that are gonna be coming there, shopping there, they're gonna shop in the area. They're going to be wanting to fill up gas or eat in the area, you know. Really, it's a good opportunity. I see a lot of people, a lot of towns are, you know, you're giving them a shot, and it's really gonna run.
And your biggest hurdle at that location is the lack of parking. One of the big hurdles. Would you like to add anything else, sir?
No,
So you're going to have different types of salons, is that?
it could be like, it's gonna be 16 individuals. Our goal is, I mean, we just need with the architect to go over everything. Our goal is to have 16 individual units, probably about 10 by 10, 10 by 12. About 100 to 120 square feet, where it could be a barber, hairstylist, nail tech, just different,
Idea.
I mean, most likely it's gonna be majority hairstylist.
Okay. What is a smile expert?
A smile expert, it could be like. Something like teeth whitening, it's something we put in there, I don't know if we're.
Just different uses.
You know, it states in here that at any given time, there will be 34 people with a single proprietor and a single tenant allowed in each individual salon suite. And you're planning on 16 suites.
Yeah, so we just did 16 times 2, what would be the max? Like the max capacity if it's completely full.
But what, okay, if you add in the proprietor and tenant, that's another 32 people.
No, 16 separate suites, so it'd be one person operating the suite and then like one customer. At like max. At max capacity or max use.
Okay,
We're not gonna be on the premises, so they're gonna have access. We have, gonna be like a keypad at the door. We give them access.
The company called like Comlet, it's gonna be a security,
right.
you know, it's not like anyone can just open the door and close the door. They need to have the code or the app. They're switching them these days. Now it's turning into an app where they can enter for security. And for their customers, so it's not just everyone can come in and out.
And it will be by appointment only?
Yeah.
Okay. And what are your hours of operation proposed to be?
I know we spoke with Noah, because I know, I'm trying to remember what,
It's mostly in the mornings, you know.
but I know the hours of operation.
Yes, so to clarify, and you'll see this, and I wanna point out a quick correction in the packet as well associated with this. The total hours of operation, because it's by appointment only, it's a little bit broader than a typical use. There is a use restriction that is proposed for your consideration with the approval of special use permit. That the hours of operation are limited from 7 AM to 11 PM. There's no appointment that can be accepted outside of those hours.
That's not the way it's worded.
It is reversed, and that's what I want to correct. On the record, it says currently that they could only operate from 11 PM to 7 AM, which would be not appropriate, and so it should be reversed, it should say the 7 AM to 11 PM should be reversed.
So that would be
They,
the business, instead of no business operation, it should say business operation. Shall be conducted between the hours of 7 AM and 11.
correct, yeah, or you could phrase it no operation between 11 and 7, and so it's we can. I think the first is a better way to go for the corrections.
And do those hours meet with what you were considering?
Yes,
What about Saturdays and Sundays?
it's gonna be same hours for every day. And how, it's how the person renting the suite, I mean. How they schedule their, I doubt anyone's really gonna come in at 7 AM, do their hair, but I mean,
Maybe.
maybe. Or 11 PM, but
It's really, our business is gonna be like basically during the weekdays, because the weekends, if they're gonna get their hair, no one's gonna come on Sunday to get their hair, done. They're gonna do it on Friday and go out and do it a week.
But you are planning on being open 7 days a week?
yes,
Okay. And right now you only have 8 parking spaces.
yes.
Um. All right, I've got several other questions, but I think I'm going to let the members of the board ask their questions, and then we can kind of go from there. How's that?
Oh,
Member Castaneda, do you have any questions or comments?
A few, and then I'd be interested to hear what fellow members have to inquire about. So is your Chicago Heights location open yet?
It's not. open.
No, okay, because if it was, I was gonna ask you what the current occupancy of it is.
Oh, great, no, it's not.
Okay. And then my only other question, was it you or staff that suggested the possible idea of demolishing the kennel structure that would add almost double the spaces on site that would be available?
It's been something.
So that was that was a conversation that was had through the review process with the applicant. It's been, part of the variance and is that you have to minimize the amount of variance that you take on. It is something that would be costly to the applicant, and it's ultimately up to the planning and zoning commission to kind of determine, has the applicant made a sufficient effort to reduce their variance? Would having to say tear down the kennel structure as is potentially proposed, would that create an undue burden on the applicant, for example, that is, prohibitive to their use of the property? And that's something that, again, is part of evaluating the variance, so that's kind of one of the chief questions that has to be answered in that variance application. So, we came up with a range of potential strategies with various levels of cost with the applicants in meeting together, and that one potential option for rectifying the variance, albeit a costly one.
Do you have a ballpark of what it would cost?
I do
No.
not know that.
We never actually considered that,
Okay.
but we'll look into that, I mean, we don't have an issue with that, let's gonna hold us back, we can look into that and see what it's gonna cost.
That's all I have at this time. I might
I
have
think-
some more questions later.
Okay. Member O'Brien?
Good evening. I've got a number of questions and well, let's start. I may at times ask staff for a reference. Who is the owner of the property?
Currently, it's owned by the South Suburban Humane Society.
South Suburban? They're still the owner of the property.
Under contract. They're the contract purchasers.
Are you with South Suburban?
I am the realtor representing both South Suburban Humane Society and the buyers.
Maybe you should be sworn in.
Would you like to stand up and state your name and address, please?
Sure. Jennifer Sheldon, 18535 Harwood Avenue.
And you swear the testimony you're going to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
As the representative of the owner, I have a question. On page 12, there's a statement that the site has structural issues which create challenges for redevelopment to accommodate any permitted or special use in the B2 zoning district. That's one comment. Page 17 of our materials identifies that the building will require extensive renovation to meet code requirements. The building is in poor condition and may deteriorate further without a new user. How can we review this application without any information regarding the structural issues? That's not just a distressed building. Structural issues are a real problem. And one approach would be, we should just table it right now until we have some information regarding the structural issues and the extent of the repairs and the cost of the repairs.
That cost is, they're required, no matter what business would go there, to have to come up with code. Even if the building were falling down and were being rebuilt, that all is addressed through their business license applications and other applications put in by the applicant. To run the business, it doesn't pertain to the special use or the variance question.
It doesn't pertain to,
It is a broad statement that the building needs structural work to meet current village code. I guess what I'm trying to say is that all is work that has to go through other building permit and code review procedures that they would have to do to open the business.
I have a question. Do we know that the building has structural issues? That we had a structural work in here out there?
I'm not even sure where this information is coming from. I don't have the packing.
I don't even know this spoke, is this regarding the whole building or just the kennel area? 'Cause I know when you spoke to a reference on people, the kennel.
I don't think that the building itself has structural issues. It's not, but
Yeah, the building itself is structurally sound and does need the roof. With some HVAC work, and then obviously just bringing that up to today's code standards.
yeah, I don't.
The roof work is what I was trying to get at, but structural, that's probably too blunt of a term to say structural. The roof work that needs to be done is there's a village staff that's aware of that, and so that's what that statement comes from. It is, again, structural issues, I guess, including roof as part of that might be too blunt of a term in the packet.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I'm never a structural issues. Building, and that would be that.
I mean, it's quite a statement, page 12. The site has structural issues which create challenges for redevelopment to accommodate any permitted or special use. If that's the case, who's going to bear the cost of the structural changes? The issues, what are the issues? Has there been any work done, any estimates given, asked for with regards to the structural issues for anything?
Bill, where's it on page 12?
I'm looking for, I'm seeing it.
We have received a quote on the roof just to repair the roof. If I get it in place. Replacing to repair it.
No, it's page 13, last paragraph.
To page 13,
Yeah.
I would say. Structural is not the right word.
Well, so so in the packet, I discussed the roof and some of the building condition as a, a constraint on the property. If you look in the paragraphs previously, I'm discussing parking spaces primarily. When I say structural. It's very poor word choice, and I do apologize for that on the record here. What I'm trying to get at is part of the entire variance review. There's not enough parking for any use that's permitted in the B2 zoning district. There is 8 spaces that would basically, based on the size of the building, would be a ratio of about 1 per 490 square feet. There's no use in the B2 zoning district they all require more parking than that. So it is a kind of structural issue with the property itself. Structural, not in the sense of the building structure, but just a foundational issue would be a better word to say. That there's no use that can be permitted in that zoning district without either adding parking or permitting a parking variance.
I think what we're trying to say is there are constraints, you say, one of the options offered for to provide those. And one of the only options I would say to provide parking on site would be to tear out the kennels. The kennels are in need of repair, they may have structural issues. But that would be the only area of the site where we would provide parking, so there's constraints on the site because of its size and location.
even if there are not structural issues, is the second half of that statement, the thinking of it, is that accurate? That it creates challenges for redevelopment to accommodate any permitted or special use? I mean, if you take away structural, and it is what it is right now, the thinking behind expressing the second part of that, can that building accommodate any permitted or special use without extensive repair?
So. This is how I understand that, if we redevelop this site, we could potentially create enough parking spaces, because this is in relation to parking. I don't think the intent was to say the building itself couldn't accommodate any uses, but to say this site could not, as it is, accommodate additional parking without redevelopment.
On page 17, the right-hand column, the middle section,
And this is what I was saying, is that I do reference that the building does need a substantial amount of renovation work to meet current code requirements, including that roof that was mentioned by the applicant. And some other things that need to get up to modern code. And on page 13, what I'm referencing is that you will have to do significant site work in order to make that site available to permit any special or permitted use on that site, because there isn't enough parking to accommodate any use allowed in the B2 zone.
okay, I don't want to take up any more time. That'll be an issue between South Suburban and the applicant. Moving right along, I have a question regarding the PIN of the property. The PIN as represented on page 11 is different than the PIN as represented on page 22. Now, normally a 4-digit number at the end is a residential number, 0000. That's on page 22. The PIN number on page 11 is different. So my question is, what is the proper PIN number for the property?
It's several properties put together. So if you look at the PIN that's on page 11, it is 001, 002, and 003. I believe, and it's listed as a consolidated property, it's 000, but that's the applicant's submission in page 22. That's the original application form. The one that's on number 11 is the one that I have from the Cook County property record.
Okay.
So there's multiple properties together, as you'll see on the parcel map that's in the attachments to the.
Okay, so it's multiple properties.
Yep, and you'll see those are labeled on page 30. You'll see those labeled, and I'll hold them up here. You'll see 001, 002, and 003. And then there's also the county has a consolidated property record, since all of these have been used together for a single use.
Okay,
I do have a question, does it include 004?
It does,
Because.
it does not include 004.
So we've got 3 things there.
it was stated in the materials that the maximum number of occupants will be 34. I'm just curious how that's calculated. There are 16 suites. There's a proprietor, there's a client. That's 32. Who are the other
A
two?
mistake on my part, it's 32.
I'm sorry?
It's a mistake on my part, it should be 32.
It should be
It
32.
should be 32.
That's just a max number, I mean, there's not gonna be a lot of people. They're gonna want different time frames. People are gonna, doing morning people, there's afternoon people. Don't see everybody going in all ready at once.
You have a facility that is in the process of being constructed in Chicago Heights.
Yeah.
Prior to that, have you had any business in this real estate market?
We do own real estate, different type, this is something new, we're in the restaurant business.
You're in the restaurant business, okay,
We have other rental properties and this is,
okay, but I'm referring to these two,
This type-
Chicago Heights and the proposal tonight, the
for
case
this,
you're bringing
it's
tonight.
one suites, this is Chicago Heights and this is gonna be.
This will be the first time, your first experience,
Yeah.
okay. The kennel building, is it usable? Is it worth remodeling and converting, or will it be left idle or demolished?
Our intent was to see what work it needed to be done to get it up to code and use it for storage.
Okay. I have a question about the parking variance that is requested because it is more than double the number of spaces available, but I'll come back to that.
We still have other questions.
On page 20, in the findings of fact, number 3, the subject property is occupied by is not correct. One structure is 3,200 square feet and a kennel building of 650 square feet is separate. I go back and make a reference to page 12. The description is also inconsistent with the description on page 12. The business was an adoption center and a kennel, correct?
No, it is all connected together.
But you had a kennel building.
No, it's all part of the same
Part of the
building.
same building.
Okay,
It's all one.
how would you characterize it? An adoption center?
So it was the Homewood Adoption Center for the South Suburban Humane Society. It was a secondary location from the Chicago Heights main facility. There is interior, the inside you had vet rooms, exam rooms, you have rooms with indoor kennels, cat cages. So that kennel building has indoor dog kennels, and then it had the guillotine doors that allow the dogs to go into the outdoor kennels.
I know, I've been through it. I've donated to it.
So yes, that kennel structure is connected to the main.
I'm trying to clarify a findings of fact where the description is operated as an animal kennel and shelter use. That would not be accurate.
It was a shelter, all of it was a shelter.
You would call the whole thing a shelter,
Animal
not an
shelter.
adoption center.
It was operated as an
South-
animal adoption.
South
center.
Suburban Humane Society, which is an animal shelter. They use it as a shelter as well as an adoption center.
Okay, I'm just trying to,
All animal shelters are,
I'm trying to clarify the inconsistencies. Okay. On page 22, there's a form, it's a non-residential zoning review. The gross floor area there is identified as 3,200 square feet, which is a building. The 650 is not included. But the other two issues on that form are in the right-hand column. one of the questions is the site circulation or parking impacted? It's indicated no. If they're requesting a parking variance, I would say that should be yes.
They're not constructing any new parking, so therefore it would be no on that form. They would, since they're not impacting the site circulation on that site, they're not say building a new parking area. That would be, they can check no on that.
So if they're not impacting the 8 parking spaces,
They have not proposed any changes on their site to parking on the site. We can talk in the variance about whether there's too much impact on surrounding parking areas, by approving the variance. But since they are not impacting the parking with their development plans as currently proposed, they can check no.
okay, then, I have a question with regards to page 13. The second standards of variance, the third paragraph. Additional spaces were discussed. Additions of 4 to 7 and 1 to 2 spaces on the site would be made. That's 5 to 9, but there's no specifics about the spaces. So to me, that answer should be yes. If there's a discussion going on with regards to adding parking spaces on the site, and one of the discussions, correct me if I'm wrong, in the material was with regards to taking down the kennel. And the cost of that would be prohibitive.
Bill, or Member O'Brien, the applicant has not currently requested any changes to parking on the site. There have been options discussed that are discussed in those paragraphs in section 2 that staff believes are potential options to add parking. So, and that would include 2 options. One would be just tearing down the kennel structure that is attached to the building that extends to the southwest off of the building. That would be we estimate that they could fit 4 to 7 spaces while meeting code for what you would require for space for parking. Or there's the potential of on the east side of the lot, you could potentially add 1 to 2 additional spaces by moving around some of the ways that the pavement is oriented.
That discussion would not impact the circulation or parking?
They have not chosen to go forward with either of those changes. The part of the discussion with the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight about the parking variance is if the applicant has taken suitable measures to mitigate the variance. But as they propose the project, they are not touching the parking. So therefore they can check no on that answer on the application.
Okay, last question on that particular, in that column on that page 22, the applicant requests variance is not checked.
The original application that was made was only a special use permit. After the fact, we required a variance to also be filed. This is the application that was originally submitted with the special use permit. We usually will take the original non-residential zoning review application as part of the application for any subsequent zoning reviews. You will find the standards of variance, which is the variance application later in the packet as well. On page that should be 26 is where that additional application material starts. So they filled that out before we told them they were required to submit a variance for that project. Which is also why there's 2 case numbers, 2405 and 2409. The case was originally assigned 2405, and then a 2409 was added as the variance case once it was determined that a variance would be required. And they applied for one.
Okay. Page 28, statement in the middle of the statement that was made. The tenants can access their space at any time. I don't want to take that statement literally. That isn't meant. Someone comes in at 1 o'clock in the morning. They're going to have access to their
That's
space.
for the applicant, since that was the narrative prepared by the applicant. So I will turn that question to, it's probably best answered by the applicant.
I mean, it's a space they're renting out, so, I mean, we talked about the hours of operation, but I mean, technically they're leasing out the space, so they are gonna have 24-hour access. If they need to get into their space.
It's not saying they're gonna be working, just if they need to get something or they need.
Because later on, you know, we discussed, what the hours of operation would be, but I mean, it's not like we could take the keys from each tenant.
That's a good point of clarification, because that's a question, how do you control the hours of operation? If your tenants have 24-hour access.
I mean, we typically, I mean. You know, if you look at, that's one thing, the hours of operation came out in the last meeting. Like, you know, if you look at Phoenix Salon Suites, Sola Salon Suites, I mean, it's 24-hour access, I mean, we're gonna have. It's like if someone has renting out an office space in an office building, I don't, you lock them out after a certain time, I don't. Because they are renting. And I'm sure there's a way you could put a system that can lock them out of the building. But I don't know,
At a certain time, we just cap it off if we have to.
I mean, but if we catch anyone with the security system, we're gonna put the camera system and we're gonna know if anyone entered after hours. And they'd be in violation of their lease, if they're doing work at 1 a.m. It's gonna come up if a client came in, the door opened, it's gonna trigger in the system.
I mean, I guess that's your answer, you put it in the lease, right?
Yes, you put it in the lease, and if someone really wants to do that, they're in violation.
Okay, my last question is on page 26. Standards for variance. Item number 1. This establishment at max occupancy will need up to 32 available parking spaces. That differs from the. This is my next to last question.
Yeah.
This differs from the 11 that is going to be needed according to the variance. But that's quite a statement, that at max occupancy, we'll need up to 32 available parking spaces.
So I can first provide some clarification from staff on the numbers, just to clarify for the commission. The zoning, or right now, there are 8 spaces available on the site. Based on the total square footage of the building, including all building area, which we would treat all as included in this use, they would need 19 parking spaces. So that's where the 11 comes from. They need 11 additional spaces to meet demand. The variance, what the applicant is saying is that based on the way that the salon tenants will be organized with 16 tenants, and you know, the potential of one, you know, client and one, you know, proprietor, say every person was there hosting an appointment at the exact same time, that would be the absolute peak demand that you would generate from this use, which is up to 32 parking spaces. That would be, I guess to clarify the numbers there, that would be, those are the different statements being made, and that's why you see that difference in the numbers.
My last question regarding the parking is the chart on page 14, the table, I should say, table A. Table A indicates that the existing on site is 5, not 8, and that the public parking needed is 14, not 11. I just want to clarify that.
It should say 8 and 11. There are 8 on site, yep, so it should say 8.
It shouldn't say 8, it should say 11. Okay,
And therefore, the public parking need goes down by 3, so it would be 24.
that'd be 25. Because of, if you add the existing on site. Prior to the yellow line for 2207. It's 64, 16 and 3 and 19 and 13 and 13 is 64. And you add 8, that becomes 72. 72 from 97 is 25.
It would be,
The point I'm making is 25 of 68 out of that public parking lot is 37% of that parking lot. Parking is a concern. We just passed the downtown plan. And there was a discussion, great discussion regarding the parking in the downtown area. the first application that we have after that approval is now going to be taking 11, according to the variance, out of that parking lot, totally. By the way, on that particular table, where's it at? For Blueberry Hill, there's no public parking needed number. It should be -8, or it should be 8. Actually, it should be a -8. There's a deficit for Knickknacks, there's a deficit for Good Speed, and there should be a deficit for Blueberry of 8.
Yeah, I was looking at
So the point I'm making is, right out of the box after the approval of the downtown plan, we're taking 11 of the parking places that were discussed and considered for the approval of that plan. That's a concern. I don't have any other questions
Okay.
at this time.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a quick clarification based on Member O'Brien's question? Staff, is that square footage calculation, just to clarify, is the square footage calculation of the building for the parking calculation includes the kennel area or does not include the kennel area?
3,850 includes the entire building area.
So we're saying the kennel area is part of the building.
It has to be classified as part of the building if they're planning on using it and it is part of.
In
the
any
building.
form, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Jeff, did you have any questions or comments?
I always have
Fine.
questions. And good evening. So my questions are quite often addressed to not just the applicant, like me, who quite often it's addressed to staff members, and tonight I might even have questions for my fellow board members. So I'm asking a general question here. Isn't it true, and it's probably directed among ourselves, isn't it true that of all the variances that we approve, what's the one category that appears most often?
What's parking?
Parking.
I'm sorry,
It's parking.
no, what class of use?
Oh, beauty pros.
Salon.
Salons, yeah. And then setting you up, what are we most concerned about with salons? What feature of the salons?
The amount of parking.
Yeah, parking, so and that's what.
Sales tax.
Well, sales tax, but we're here talking about parking areas. And quite often, we examine, do we not? Hours of operation.
Yes.
And what are the hours of operation that we most often receive as the answer for the likely hours of operation of a spa?
8 until 10, Monday through Friday,
Right.
or
And,
Saturday.
but didn't we have, and of course we didn't we have a situation with a parking variance not too many months ago, not too many meetings ago, when we were concerned about when the peak occupancy would occur, because that might affect parking? Isn't that true that quite often? And with spas, especially along Dixie, and I understand this is not on Dixie Highway, this is on 183rd Street, but quite often, especially along the spas on Dixie, we were asking the question, inquiring about this, and the answers were often given that the hours of operation of these particular spas on Dixie, the peak might occur in the later afternoon or evening. In fact, even later at night. Is that true? I mean, does anybody remember that?
That was on the east side of Dixie
Yeah.
that we were discussing that issue, and we brought up also the discussion of the brewery. Cause that impacted, because that was at night.
Yes.
The whole point about, and well, here, I'm gonna ask another question. What would one person, any person in the village of Homewood describe as the biggest issue regarding our central business district?
Lack of parking.
Parking, okay, so.
I don't think so.
what would
I
it
don't,
be?
I don't think if you ask regular people, not people who are on a commission like this, who are looking at these kind of,
Well, I'm here to
situations.
tell you, I think I've said over the years, over the months certainly, ever since, our little episode with the country club, I have, and I describe it as civic engagement. I am approached several times weekly, whether I'm at a grocery store, whether I'm at the library, whether I'm at church, whether I'm at the gas station, whatever, post office, doesn't matter. People will come up to me, and I'm not an elected official, I want to make that very clear, but people come up to me and these past, I would say, since the middle of March, the biggest concern that I get several times a week from people is, man, what do you do for parking downtown? And to me, I say, well, in some ways, it's a matter of enforcement. Some people complain that there might be some reserved tenant parking on the south side of Ridge that is occupied by people going to the restaurant. And that to me clearly is an enforcement problem. I mean, that's why they post parking requirements and the threat of towing, it's an enforcement, but by and large, I would still say the comments that I have gotten past several months, past several weeks, several times a week are about downtown, the availability of downtown parking. Now, my questions before asked the obvious procedures that we use, policy that we use when evaluating variances. And I think to our credit, we've been all very, I want to say, receptive to ideas and certainly creative in our approach to it. And of course, we encourage creative use of parking in the sense that if we realize that one particular use might have its peak of business operation in the early morning, it might be compatible with another use that might be competing for the same parking resources with a peak hours of operation at different times of the day. And just to use that example again, the situation on Maple, it was not necessarily a salon, but we examined, and the owner petitioner was very methodical and diligent in presenting to us actual data, traffic counts taken from his, as I recall, it was easy for him to do. He just reviewed his security camera tapes, to get an idea of that. My point here is, this is, and I'm gonna rely on Bill for his arithmetic. If he says this is a 37% occupation, let's say, of parking requirements, I accept that. But my point is, I'm kind of surprised. I'm surprised here by the statement that you made in the application that you envision the peak hours to be the early morning. Could you talk to that? Why do you say that? And how can you control that?
It's not something I can necessarily control, but typically, I would say the peak hours for this type of business would probably be like 9 o'clock. Probably to 12 o'clock, 12:30,
And why do you say that? I'm curious what your reasoning is for that.
I've spoke to, I mean, I used to rent to a salon in my building in Chicago Heights. And I mean, from just seeing the parking lot, when we're at the restaurant, typically when they're busier, it's busier. During those hours. It's not that they don't get anything later, they do, but I know like. When it's busier, it's just during those hours, typically during the week.
So how would you react to possibility that we might impose a restriction on you that would limit your hours of operation to favor the early morning operation? How would you react to that?
I mean, it'd make things challenging for us with tenants.
Yeah, and I'm not, believe me, I want to make
Yeah.
it clear, I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
that. But to maybe get to the point by stating that you envision your peak hours of operation here to be the early morning hours. It kind of, well, it doesn't kind of, it coincides with the peak of Blueberry Hills operation.
Blueberry Hill will typically, when they need parking, Saturday, Sunday. And I think Saturday, Sunday, less people would probably, especially Sunday, would probably want to get their hair done.
Yeah, but you're still saying that you're, well, here, you have 16 spaces
Yeah.
for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. But I mean,
16 spaces,
But-
I'll come back to that in a second. My point is you're proudly saying you're gonna have 7 days a week to operate.
Yeah.
From 7 AM to 11. So how? Which is part of my point. How do you control when you're, I mean, you'd be entitled to parking spaces here, grant this variance, but how do we collectively control the fact that, oh my gosh, you're acknowledging that Blueberry Hill probably has a problem with parking on Sunday mornings, their peak Saturday as well. So any use in your building on Saturday or Sunday would be the straw that broke the camel's back.
but Blueberry Hill still has parking. It's not like they have. And it's not like we have zero parking and Blueberry Hill has zero
I
parking.
understand.
And I just,
So another thing is, when we're saying 16 suites, that's our max. We might talk to the architect and he might say we can only get in 12 in there, or 13 suites. We're just saying that this. We didn't put anything in there. This was just a rough draft of us.
Which is
architecting
great.
it out.
Well, I'm grateful that you're certainly entitled to petition for the most you can get, so I encourage you and I applaud you, yeah, 16 spaces, however you describe it, stalls, cubicles, blah, 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 blah,
No,
blah.
sweet.
Suites, whatever, 16, well, I have think, you know, I made the observation several years ago that we were going to our new zoning ordinance, which were certainly used to guide us in this sort of decision, of this whole approach to a multi-tenant building. You're the multi-tenant landlord, okay? But what we're looking at here really is this variance is not for one spa operator. It's a variance for a multi-tenant property owner. And we are actually looking at 16 potential new spas. Is that right?
Yeah.
My point is, anybody here study economics? No, oh my gosh. So economics, what happens when the supply of something exceeds the demand? Anybody know?
Price goes up. Price goes down.
Price goes down. And I'm not asking the question of our staff, what percentage of our business licenses, our business community are spas? I'm not asking that question. We've asked it before. what we're doing here, if you think about it, is we are, in my opinion, I'm using the word dramatically because I don't have the total proportion of spas that is a proportion of the total business licenses, but I'm here to say that we're dramatically increasing the number of spas in our downtown business district. And my point, coming back to it, economics, supply of something, when it exceeds the demand, what's a consequence of that? Prices go down. So that means, if we think about it, big picture, and this is not necessarily for you, I mean, I understand what you're trying to do. But my point is for all of us to consider a consequence of this. I mean, for some reason, Homewood has this attraction. I was in Naperville a few weeks ago. And I was listening to a conversation about how somebody was saying, what a great place Homewood was for spas, for tattoo parlors, or this or that or whatever. So I mean, is that the kind of balanced business climate we're really looking to do? My point is, going back to the economics lesson, supply of the number of spas is increasing, exceeds the demand. Maybe it doesn't. People from Naperville are coming here. So that's good. But otherwise, in the situation where supply exceeds demand, prices go down, prices that one can charge, there's a lot of competition.
Okay.
And it's,
They're going down.
well, I understand we're in an inflationary cycle. That's a whole nother situation, but my point is, the supply like this works to keep the prices in check, and my point to that is how likely with some sort of control of prices like that are your tenants likely to be a viable operation? I'll listen.
So I would say salon suites are a unique business concept that have become quite trendy and quite successful. They give independent contractors the opportunity to become business owners and work their own hours. Typically, it's different than a normal salon that's open from say 8 a.m. till 9 p.m. that is fully functioning the entire time. Each individual operator of those suites, however many end up being, will set their own hours. Some may only work 2 days a week for a handful of hours. Some may work 4 days a week for less hours, but they're not all going to be there from open to close every single day. That wouldn't be sustainable for anybody working. Additionally, hairstylists, nail techs, masseuses, estheticians, their client base follows them. So they are sustainable. Even if you go to, say you go to Jonathan Kane to get your hair done, that's where you've been going for 10 years, and your stylist moves to a salon in Mokina, guess where you're going? You're going to Mokina because you're following your stylist, not the salon. So I would just say it's actually a very sustainable business model. And I do have quite a few friends that have moved out of traditional salon suites or out of operating out of their homes, or out of salons or operating out of their homes into salon suites, and have been incredibly successful and really enjoy the freedom. And they're bringing their clients into those communities. So it's proven to be a very sustainable.
Thank you.
business.
I expected somebody would provide that answer because that's the reality of it. This is a question for staff. Do we have any measure that we can use? And one thing that I was thinking of is business license renewal. That might be a proxy for how sustainable or successful some of these individual suites are. And you know, I don't mean to embarrass you by asking this question coldly, but maybe going forward, this is something we look to address in situations like this.
So, we do not have experience with this particular, it's sort of a new business model as far as the way that salons operate. We do have Essence Salon Suites that is opening on Halsted Street. It wasn't a special use. It didn't require a variance. We don't really have that measured at this time because it has not yet opened. So this would be the second one, of this type of business model. So we don't really have a test for it. I do think that it's also hard to determine the peak hours because it is individual business owners and they will have, they will have their clients. They'll go by their clients' time. They're probably going to be part-time, most of them. So yeah, we don't really have this particular model tested at this time.
So your facility in Chicago Heights, did you need any special use permits for that or a variance? No. So it's just because you more or less met the zoning classification for that district, everything is fine.
There's also a company, it's a salon called Hodge Suites.
And Hazel Crest.
I mean, that one has almost, I think, 30 or 40 suites in there.
I'm
A
very,
lot of- Oh, sorry. A lot of them are typically like 30 suites and up, if you look into them, and I never realized, like you Google salon suites near me, how many there really is coming up. Like I live in Orland Park, and between Orland Park and Tinley Park, there's probably 12 separate salon suites right now. And there's one in Tinley Park, I think they just expanded to being over 50 salon suites.
well, I'm very grateful that everybody pitched into.
You're giving people what they want.
I understand, but our people here like parking.
There's one.
Certain times of the day, overnight, I'm sure there's plenty of parking. There for a while, since you brought it up, I have to address this. A few of my friends expressed, I'm gonna use the word discomfiture. Not very happy with trying to find parking downtown to patronize not only our newest business, the restaurant Stony Point Grill, but also just to be able to drop into one of the existing Village Door, or maybe Tim Ceiling or whatever. So my point is another economic concept. It's called an opportunity cost. So somebody dominating the available parking might lead to the detriment of another business. And who's the judge of that? Who's the arbiter? Our role, one of our roles here, I would think, is to just give careful consideration to weighing the benefits and the disadvantages of approving something like this with clearly the potential for overloading the existing parking availability depending upon when the peak occurs. I'm not an elected official, but all I'm saying is, the past month, several times a week, I get an earful from people about the fact that downtown, in their opinion, parking is a very precious commodity. And people, let's face it, their convenience is always important. Inclement weather adds to it, but downtown people are concerned and unwilling to walk to this side of the road, one block north of Ridge for parking that's plentiful. I mean, their comments are very real. I encourage them if they're so inclined and it's a enforcement issue, talk to the police. That's the reason our mayor likes to conduct his Saturday morning sessions. You know, people can come and complain, but you know, nevertheless, do I like listening to somebody whine that they couldn't find a parking space for the village door? No.
But could we agree that that parking lot does not service the downtown district where people exactly complaining about parking?
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because help me out here. Isn't it true that when we were listening to some of the features of our transit-oriented development plan for the downtown area, we were acknowledging something that we as a group here do all the time in situations like this, and that is, and you know, I'm not making light of it when I say this, but it's like a shell game. And one of my takeaways from this transit-oriented development plan is that we probably have sufficient parking in the downtown area. It's just that A, people might not be aware of its presence, and B, they don't want to walk the extra block. I mean, all of us, I'm sure, have all sorts of favorite little places where to go if we're dropping something off or picking something up or whatever. But if I'm not mistaken, we have, as part of this transit-oriented development plan, we designated, what's the technical phrase? I didn't bring that they used, you know, the name for it, like not so much districts, but commitment areas or something.
Consolidation area.
Consolidation areas. So the idea is, and it's not a formal procedure where there are established easements and whatever, but you know, we're acknowledging the practical effect of, yeah. This spa, this salon, their peak occurs in the afternoon, so whatever parking they might have available might be available in the evening for the fifth quarter. The new brewery on Dixie is going to have a rather big parking area. That's great for them and their business, their hours of operation. But what about 11 in the morning? Wouldn't that be available? Of course, be for some of the other users in that area. I mean, we're talking about this particular situation. We've already talked about Blueberry Hill when their peaks are not just in the morning, but on the weekend. You know, of course. I mean, we're sort of adept at and have been for years and what we all consider. So just something to think about, that's all. And thank you all. I think everybody here answered my question to my satisfaction. So I'm grateful for that. So I'm done for now. I'm done for now.
For now. Thank you. Member Bransky.
Again, I think I was gonna have to phone it in later. So to speak to the parking, the chart's a little bit misleading. On any given Saturday or Sunday, Blueberry Hill depends on easily 95% of that lot. And that is for the better part of the day into at least after lunchtime. On weeknights and Saturday nights, that is the Lassen's overrun. You will not find parking on Martin. You will not find parking behind Lassen's. That is their overflow, and it is full Friday night, Saturday night, any night of the week. Go try and pick up your carryout order and you will find yourself parking in the far reaches of that parking lot. Martin, personal experience. You made a comment about the kennels and possibility for storage. Could you clarify on that? My question is, storage for whom? Are you anticipating running that like a storage center? Or are you talking about storage for yourselves and the suite owners only, or the suite operators only?
Just like extra, like whatever material they're gonna need, like shampoo and stuff like that, we can have extra supply back there.
Okay.
You know, like Kleenex and stuff, so it's just, but it's gonna be all minimized space. And we're gonna try to use as much as we can, so we're not gonna build any closets, we're not gonna build anything like that. taking
Yeah.
space. Not gonna be any space.
cleaning supplies, et cetera, et cetera. And I know salons, they need washer and dryer and
Exactly.
for all their towels and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, so to clarify, you're not
No,
intending to use it as like a public storage.
It's only 600 square feet.
Yeah. It wouldn't be very
Yeah.
viable, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Special use, so I mean, that's really, I mean, we've talked about parking ad nauseum. Special use, my question is for staff, I've asked this question before, I feel like I ask it on every special use case. Does not the special use permit have the, require that that it specifically itemize the intended uses on the special use permit for how it's gonna be used from day one? And I feel like this case is in conflict with that because it feels like the property is being done on speculation. So I don't know how we could arrive at a motion to define the special uses here when we've got this litany of potentials on speculation. We don't know what's gonna be in there. We can set limits and the zoning ordinance already sets some of those limits. But the special use understanding is supposed to explicitly list them, so how do we rectify that?
Member Bransky, so there's I guess there's kind of a process to get to where those strictures for the use will come from. The zoning category for this is a salon spa establishment. The salon spa establishment lists explicit activities that can be operated in that space. There are uses that are similar to it, like a tattoo parlor, a massage parlor, a dentist, a dental office. Those are separate uses and cannot be used in that space. So that's the first restriction that we can place on it, is we can very clearly define it as a salon spa use, even if you have, say, individual, think of like another salon, like a Great Clips. Any uses that go on in that facility can't be operated outside of what is allowed in that salon spa establishment use, and the same applies here. So that's one restriction that can be applied here. When you have something like a multi-tenant use, or I guess a salon suites use like this, you do, just by the nature of the use, lose a little bit of the ability to clearly kind of say this tenant will do this, this tenant will do this, this tenant will do this. However, we can still do things that, again, place restrictions on the operation of the facility from day one, like the hours of operation restrictions. And if the Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't believe it's appropriate, the 7 to 11, and wants to restrict further, that is in your right to do so, to place restrictions on that use. We also tried to do some of those restrictions in the conditions that are provided, like the building access management system, some of the use-specific restrictions in there. But again, as for the salon spa use, people who sign leases there will be permitted to do any of the uses in that salon spa establishment use category. You do define a challenge with the salon spa suite use. But again, it would be the same for any other salon spa business. If you wanted to expand your services, you could only do it in the narrow range of services that are permitted in a salon spa establishment use.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Mhm.
And what prompted that question is one, not to get back into past history, but that event space one where we
Right.
kind of a similar, it was like, well, we might do this, we might do that, and it caused problems. Last question then, well, maybe not so much a question, just a comment. I think that the desire to have 24-hour access is, I think the easy way to clarify that is to say that the commercial operating hours would be per the hours that staff suggested. But I know in this, having friends in this business, that might be the time for cleaning of the suites, for doing that laundry, for stocking up on supplies, etc. So I think that's the intent of 24-hour access, so people can get in there and do their behind the scenes stuff, but not not be open for business and taking in clientele. And that's probably a pretty minimal load
Yeah.
of any parking or persons on the
Mhm.
site. So
Correct.
just to kind of clarify that, I mean, is that kind of, I mean, I would think
Yes,
that's kind of what you were intending.
Yeah.
That's what I took out of it.
Exactly, they're gonna have to clean after hours, you know.
Right.
Be cleaning while people are over there, exactly.
So just for the board to keep that in mind, that it's 24-hour access doesn't necessarily mean commercial business, but we can use the language of it to explicitly define that.
Correct.
Okay. Um. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Member Alfonso?
I'd like to just build on that, as far as the hours and you have people who are administering the business there at times when your salon people wouldn't be there. Now, will you have spaces available for somebody to work? I mean, like if you guys were there, I don't know, monitoring the businesses and of course your cleaning staff and if they do have laundry, you're gonna have laundry facilities,
We have like a laundry machine and dryer.
Yeah, so watch them back.
just one.
Uh,
And where would that be in here?
Um,
The hair dryer and shampoo room or utility? Over there,
you know, that was one I just drew up just to give a rough idea. But I mean, at the end of the day, when the architect draws up the blueprint, like, the one you have there.
You can see in the blueprint that there's a laundry machine in the blueprint that, with one.
okay, I see, yeah.
In the drawing that he sketched out, there's 17 spaces, I mean, one of them we would just be able to do the other streets.
No,
How big are these suites?
in Chicago Heights, they're about 110 square feet.
Okay,
There's,
10 by,
it's, the four in the middle are 113 square feet. And then the other 410, and then the other 410. And in the utility room, that's where the washer and dryer and.
I'm talking about this
Oh, that's
right here.
how big?
How big are the ones you're planning on?
We intend to do them about the same thing, about 110 square feet.
Well, you know, I use these facilities, so I understand, you know, what you're going for, and it's a very nice, you know, place in Finley Park. And it's private, and my esthetician is her own business owner. She runs a business, she loves the place. Again, there's not a consistent usage. You know, hour after hour with two people in the suite, she's gotta take her appointments.
Yeah.
And she'll have her days off. So as far as the maximum usage being calculated on the fact that you have an owner and a client there, you know, 100% of the time that it's open, that's not happening.
No.
So, you know, I think that the burden on the parking lot there is going to be spread out during the day. You know, because I know when I'm making appointments, maybe it's a morning appointment, maybe it's an afternoon appointment. Unlike the restaurants that you know it's gonna be
Yeah.
breakfast or lessons, it's gonna be after work. So, I really think that that making the comparison of the burden of your parking with the other businesses, it's not one-on-one. So, I'm just saying that I think you have great vision to look at that space and say you're gonna make it into a salon suite. So, you know, we'll just see where you go with this.
We plan on investing a lot into the business from outside, just so people, because it's downtown. So we want to make it look nice, we want people to be like, wow, we really updated this building, and we're just trying to make the area look a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then another thing also is,
Okay.
there's, I mean, it's not like there's like, where people at the salon, they're not gonna be drinking and having fights or anything, they're gonna go in there, get their treatment done.
We can't drink and have fights. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Across the street maybe, but not always.
Hopefully they're not fighting over parking.
Yeah. All right, I have some questions for you. I own a retail business next to a salon. Their busy time is not 9 o'clock in the morning. Their busy time is probably noon to maybe 4. And then maybe from 5 until 8 or 9. Morning is not a busy time for a salon spa that I've been next to. Okay. I have a question on your drawings here.
Yes,
You're talking about 16 spaces.
yeah,
This is from your architect?
this is for, I just gave it as an example. That's for the Chicago Heights, it's a smaller space, it's about 2,400 square feet,
Okay,
and that's 12 spaces.
yeah, because this one shows 12 suites. Okay.
The applicant wished to have that included as a proof of concept to show the other location to help kind of better conceptualize the proposed project here in Homewood.
Okay. My concern is you're competing. You're competing with Lassen's for one. You're competing with the bike shop. You're also competing with the bakery or the pancake house. And you can only squeeze so much stuff. You can only squeeze so much stuff in a 5-ton bag, okay? I think that's what you're predicting over there is way too much traffic for that little parking lot. Now, and there's also talk of a restaurant going in across the street where the old gas station's at. Okay. I forget what brand of gas station it was, but you know, if that goes in, yes, they have some parking in their own parking lots, but again, you're gonna be competing for that same space.
This is a building that's not up yet, but this is a.
The building's existing, but it's not operational right now.
Oh.
But they are planning a restaurant. I just think there's gonna be a big parking problem. And that's my only comments right now.
We're not using our spaces, I mean, other businesses do that. Like, big space. They might use 5, they might use 8. I'm not sure. Well, we're gonna look at the property and see what we can do about parking over there. And see if we can just try to, see what it costs to get rid of the kennel. Just to add a little bit of parking there,
But again, okay, if you got rid of the kennels, how many spaces would that give you?
maybe 8. No, I don't know.
In the, it's a 4 to 7 spaces, and that's just based on just some basic configurations with the amount of square footage per space and what we'd require for a drive aisle. You could maybe squeeze up to 7, but probably more realistically in kind of the 4 to 6 range of parking spaces. So they would still need a variance, but the variance would be reduced, which is a part of a variance application as well.
But I mean, the number that we're giving, I mean, hopefully we rent it out and we're at 100% occupancy. I think typically a place like this, if you're at 80% occupancy, it's great. You're gonna have people coming in out that are renting. So the number we're giving is like, and just like not everyone in there is gonna be 7 days open to close.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some people that do only rent it for 2 days or 4 days, or maybe someone will work 6 days. But I just like, that number is just like worst case scenario, that's why we're giving that number.
And that's what we have to plan for.
Well, then if you look at it that way, then worst case scenario for every single business there, I mean. I don't. If that's the way you're gonna look at it, I don't know how.
Well, I mean, you know, if you do get your variances and everything,
Yeah,
certainly we like to see you get that
Yeah.
place filled up.
yeah,
But, and that's what we have to plan on. As far as parking and everything else that goes on. Okay.
Another question,
Yes, sir.
if you're done.
Go down, yeah.
How are the proposed hours of operation determined? Whose idea was that, 7 to 11?
It's just, I mean, I was just, what could be, because you know, it's when we draw up the lease, we need to put it in the lease, what the hours of operation are. And what's the cap hours, so we can,
So what are your hours of operation in the Heights?
or it's gonna be, I mean, over there, I own the property, and I don't really. That could be 24 hours if I wanted to.
Okay, and the city hasn't said,
No, I doubt it's gonna be 24 hours, we're gonna put it in something similar in the lease.
so for this similar concept on Halsted, what are their hours of operation?
They're 24
It
hours.
would be 24 hours, there's no restrictions. There really isn't a means for us for a business certificate to determine what the hours are gonna be in a business if they don't have a special use or variant or some kind of.
good answer.
Or if they don't have a. Those are the two ways. we can set hours.
So then, I mean, it's a good answer, but then we really don't know, to be honest, what's appropriate in a situation like.
Well, 70-11, when we're talking to Noah, I was like, what, it's something you guys would allow, and that's the number.
Yep.
That's the hours we came up with.
So this was worked on between staff and the applicant. So staff brought up a discomfort, given that there's R2 residential zone properties right across the street from this. You know, discomfort with the idea of a 24-hour building. The special use permit is one of only 2 vehicles, as Angela mentioned, that we have to actually restrict hours of operation. And in negotiation with the applicant and what they thought would be appropriate for a viable business, while also still restricting overnight activity right next to a residential property, the hours of 7 to 11 were determined as for that site. Again, they can be adjusted by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So this is a question for my good buddy Seth. And I certainly know part of the answer as well. Where is, let me use the phrase, overflow parking provided here? When this lot is full, yeah, I mean, I mean, Lord knows if I've tried to come to Lassen's later in the evening on a Saturday night, even a Friday night, everything's full.
It's in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood,
Yeah, Martin
residential
is-
neighborhood.
Martin on
Yeah.
the south side of 183rd will be full for 2 blocks, parking on both sides.
And what's the street, east of that is parking, because some of them, I know there are different parking regulations.
Lassen's overflow is a good speed, they have an agreement there, and then beyond that, generally it's this parking lot, but also the on-street parking.
Right, Martin, but what's
So-
that, the street west of Martin?
Morris?
Morris, yeah. And I think they have some funny parking restrictions there, if I recall. But my point is, with all of this, depending on these hours of operation, the later you go, especially on weekends, if there's competition for off-street parking, which I think everybody here is in agreement that there will be, it will push this through the residential streets. And that's, you know,
Not gonna make the residents too happy.
very happy, right? So just to, so everybody's aware of that.
But even if we, that, nothing to do with us, the market's packed, our operation is gonna be that maybe 9, they're gonna, you know, 10, maybe, I'm not sure what time they get busy, but all our clients are gonna be probably out of it.
They're busy at dinner time. That's when
I
you
mean,
try
I
and,
guess you don't know when your clients are gonna be there.
Yeah.
Right, so I mean, there's always this element of speculation.
and that's the problem. To talk about it, you have to go with a calculation, and the only valid calculation we have is your potential max. And that's how you put this through that calculation for every business that we talk with about parking variances. You have to talk about what their potential max saturation is, or use of the available parking.
And using Fred's experience, which is probably as valid as anything, the likely peaks peak hour of operation is not likely to be in the morning. It's more likely to be in the
Afternoon and
later
evening.
afternoon and early evening when there will be more of an intense competition for the available off-street parking
Should have
spaces.
Blueberry Hill. Do they have, does Blueberry Hill have?
No,
Dinner?
no,
No.
no, they're done by
They've done better.
2, 3 at the most cleanup. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, other possibilities like you're talking about, and I applaud your efforts to creatively think this through. I mean, think about it, by reducing, by demolishing the kennel, you reduce the extent, the hit of your variance. What's the word you used? Noah, mitigate. You know, I like
Mitigate,
that.
right?
Yeah,
Yep.
but I like.
There's a
that.
cost benefit to that too.
Well, of
Yep.
course,
And they afford
but
to do that.
The other, of course, it's a business
Maintain
decision.
viability,
We
yeah.
can't, it's not for us to say. Another possibility would be, 16 suites, maybe 12 or 10. Something like that. We're not asking for this information, but I'm sure you have some sort of financial pro forma where you've evaluated this. You know those answers better than I, and like I say, we're not asking for that, but the point is, a smaller number of suites would also mitigate the need for what strikes a lot of people as a rather dramatic request for a variance.
And just to add a quick staff note, member Cap, so that is another option to, as you're mentioning, to lower the number of suites. You'll see there's a condition at the end of the special use permit. Notes in the packet that the 16 is a cap, that is
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
condition. That
Absolutely.
there's a certain number of seats, essentially, we would treat it as, or a certain, capacity.
Maximum feeling.
Right, and so, there are opportunities to further consider that, whether at this hearing, ultimately you do have it in your power to continue it, to further consider that number if you need to. But there is that's a number that you can work with as well.
Yeah. I actually, to be honest, I kind of like the findings of fact. The only thing I was really questioning about that was hours of operation. Once again, I'm very grateful that these are very direct answers to my questions. There's no intention to smoke and mirror in a day thing, so I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
But regardless, even, let's just say, we look into removing the kennel. That brings in 4 to 7 parking spaces. If it's that big of an issue of 8 parking spaces, and we're only now say to get 12 parking spaces, we remove the kennel. And it only creates 4 parking spaces.
The need for a variance for 4.
But no, the variance would be, I don't know how you guys calculate. I'm thinking if we looked
Exactly.
into removing the kennel. And if they say that it's a potential of 4 to 7 parking spaces. Currently, there's 8, say you only get 4. That still doesn't.
You would still need a variance, but
Yeah, well, you could still.
it would not be so dramatic. It would be Bill's for that.
I think
I'm
the
not.
number yeah, that's exactly the point. The number sticks is the percentage of what you potentially could be saturating from that parking lot at times where other businesses are also competing for that, so those same spaces.
No, I understand that, but is 4 spaces a solution? That's what I'm asking.
Well, 4 spaces doesn't provide a solution to the potential of 37% of the available spaces being taken for one
Well,
business.
your variance, you're asking for a variance. Help me out. I want to make sure it's correct. 11 spaces.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so if you whatever you could provide by demolishing the kennel,
It's 4 to
creative,
7.
whatever, 4 to 7.
Yeah.
If you have 4, then the variance is 7. If you have 7, the variance is 4. Variance of only 4 parking spaces is nothing. You
You look at how that changes That would change dramatically what your potential saturation of the rest of the lot is.
No, I'm just asking, is it something because?
But-
Yeah,
But the cost might be prohibitive.
oh yeah, the cost.
I'm kind of speculating that it probably is.
$1,000, I have no idea.
Is this the extent of the kennels? or
This is the outside.
That's what I was thinking, we can just park here, not moving this building up.
That would be a nominal cost.
Yeah,
That would,
probably-
that's why we just said, yeah, we just gotta fix the concrete and then just get the stripes over here, yeah.
The structure.
And I'm thinking like every 2 tunnels is like basically parking spots, and I think there's no almost 5.
We'd have to get. the
Over there.
concrete.
But you use the panels for square anyway, because
No, it's
Still
the
inside.
structure.
Oh,
they're not,
I was pointing, this was from the real estate listing. It's just a look at
Right.
the outdoor.
yeah, that's the.
No.
You don't get out.
Yeah, the two sides outside the brick.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, we gotta do concrete.
He does,
Yeah.
you can't use anything.
No.
We're gonna make it look better anyway, we don't want.
Yeah, just.
Yeah.
If you gentlemen would like, we can continue this case
You got the runs.
to give you some time
Get rid
to
of that.
look
That's an easy
into
cost.
Yeah.
the costs and whatever to take down the kennel. And then bring it back to us,
And the potential.
You seen it, Maureen?
what you could actually put in there.
And then also might it be logistically possible, in addition to the kennel, also moving those dumpsters to eke out another common spaces. That's another thing.
Right, yep.
Logistically you can look into, and that would
Yep.
make it a lot more digestible.
That's the 1 to 2 that was mentioned as well, was the, you know, if you move those dumpsters, say if you add a small paved slab behind them, or if you do something where you could, or
Cheap.
move it to the west side of the property with some property reconfiguration, you could potentially then again pick up 1 to 2 spaces. And when you're dealing with a use that's still only 19 parking spaces, every space is a 5-6% drop in the amount of that your demand that's now being absorbed on your site. Because again, these parking calculations are, you know, they're pretty crude at the end of the day, but they're generally trying to get to some level of normal peak demand for this type of use. They're approximation. So again, you're kind of taking every space is about 5-6% of that generic peak use that's being absorbed on your site. And that makes a big difference in a lot that does see heavy use. There are generally spaces available, particularly in the 2 rear wings of the parking area, just based on anecdotal evidence. But again, it makes a big deal in a busy area that is heavily variable throughout the day and how much parking is being used, which is noted in the report.
So if you'd like to do that, we can continue the case. And give yourself some time to investigate all this and find out what it's gonna cost.
That also might give you time to assess what you gotta do inside the building too, a little more,
Yeah.
which you might wanna know.
But I'm sure your pro forma would drive this.
Yeah, because I've been up with 16 suites.
When would our next scheduled meeting be?
So the date for the public notice has passed for the next. Yep, wait, we would not have to notice again?
It's to a date certain, you don't need to notice.
Oh, okay.
The next meetings.
There we go.
May
May
27th,
May 23.
May 23rd.
I think that's enough time to get that kind of information together.
Yep, the next one would be what,
I might-
June 13.
You were in there, it was, I saw them.
Yeah, I think it'll help you out in the end as well, to know what the heck you're dealing with.
You may also be able to, I'm sure there are industry standards out there for these salons, or what we need to manage that is in the hours of operation. Because I have a chance to do some research about.
Yep.
Issue.
And I'm happy to meet with you as well, since I know you've worked with me on this case to kind of flesh out some of these details, maybe get some even some very broad numbers to some of these things and you know, again, kind of work out some of the specifics with you on top of the research that Angela's mentioning as well. So we can work on these things.
When there's a will, there's a way.
Okay, so we'll continue it till May 23rd, you said?
That's
So that- Yep.
And if it turns out that's not enough time, you know, you can always contact Noah. And we can push it back another.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So I will need a motion to continue case number 2405 and 2409.
Mr. Chairman, I move to continue both cases with those designated numbers. 2405, 2409.
I'll second that.
Motion by Cap, second by Mr. Bell.
Right.
Roll call, please.
Member Alfonso,
Yes.
member Bransky,
Yes.
member Cap,
Yes.
member O'Brien,
Yes,
member Castaneda,
Yes.
Chair Zerzaga,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, good luck. What else do we have? Anything else, Angela? Angela, anything else for us?
No, we actually don't have any scheduled.
Okay.
Okay, I will then motion. Does anybody have any?
We'll move, but to adjourn this meeting.
Okay. We have a motion by member Cap,
second.
second by member O'Brien. Roll call.
Just, yes.
Member Brand.
Yes.
Member Cap.
I want to stay here till closing hours of 11 o'clock.
I'm gonna submit a contact vote for member Johnson, who typically is looking at his watch about this time,
No.
Yeah.
or yes.
Of course.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Chair Zerzaga.
Yes.
So you're sleeping
We
back
are.
next time. Next time.
8:48.
And I'm sorry for the delay.
Don't worry about it.
I had another meeting I was just coming from.
Don't worry about it. We got your back.
And thank you for doing the
Yes.
minutes.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
Get her back.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
I have to admit, I'd be in favor if they
Reduced. Well, yeah,
parking,
parking.
parking and reduce.
Time to go home and find some dinner.
Your